Today, we're looking at a gray ink by Bookbingers Ground Rattler Snake. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. There's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I would appreciate if you check out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can check me out over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Pierre Cardin President with a medium nib. I wrote with it for a day, then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to standardize some of my writing samples, I always use Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper for all of the inks. I do use other papers, and some of those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, great shading all the way through. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. Look at this amazing shading here. For a gray ink, it shades awesome. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, amazing camouflage-like shading. 7 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows a lot of color variation. We got that. The medium shows none, but we got tons. Well, Tomoe River. No bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very nice shading. The extra fine is just about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it still offers a very nice shading with 9 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone, maybe a tad darker than the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, light shading, very light shading. You look at the word fox and the word brown, you see it's there, not as much. 12 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, medium shows none, although we are getting some in the writing. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, nice shading throughout the writing. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, still a very nice shading in this writing. 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation, although it's very nice in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see right here why this ink shades so well. It's the complexity of what they've done. We have a light gray at the bottom that, yes, it started to form a little bit of a line and push its way up. That forming of a line is going to help in it being permanent faster in some areas, or at least trying to bond faster, which helps with the shading. But then we get this very kind of yellow tone and turquoise above the top. Now those colors, this is what's giving us a very, very nice shading effect. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And we see that that gray is much more forming the line at the bottom. It's becoming quite a bit more permanent. A lot less of that gray is moving. That golden yellow that's there is more noticeable, and that turquoise at the top, it's the same. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel perfectly safe using this in a note-taking situation, but a thing to notice is that you no longer get any shading. So there's that. Now water's lifting everything but that light gray that we saw in the chromatography, which makes it look like just a lighter gray with this gray. Pen flush is starting to break it up a little bit more, and you just see the beginnings of some white of the paper coming through. I did not need to use pen flush. Water was enough to get this out of my pen and converter without a problem. Now the 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper, but I didn't need to use it to get it out of my pen. I test viscosity or flow by using a tilt test that I've linked in this video. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Bookbingers Ground Rattler has a viscosity of 3.31, making this a very dry ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all of those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Bookbingers Ground Rattler has an average dry time of 8 seconds, which makes it a very fast drying ink. A lot of varies with this ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Bookbingers Ground Rattler Snake, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice blue-black, and I chose Diamine Blue-Black. The second writing sample is done on Limone, black and red, and lavender paper. Here we're looking at Limone paper. Now with Limone paper, we do get a lot of bleed spots, a lot of ghosting that's a result of it. It's spotting. It's not coming all the way through. It's not touching the back of the page, but it's gray. So I guess if you were writing with a dark black, a dark blue on the other side, you probably could use the other side. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Just kidding. It still shades. It's not too bad. It's not too stand out, but you see lighter areas and darker areas. Like the book is much darker than the durs on the end. So it's definitely there. Look at what's going on in ground, where it starts dark, gets light, and gets dark again. It's just not stand out, but it is definitely there. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, only 1 or 2 tiny spots of shading, 4 seconds to dry. No real shade though, just a couple spots. The medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the darker parts of the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both shows no color variation, and we really didn't get any in the writing. Black and red notebooks, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading in here. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading in here again. And this is a more absorbent paper, and it did it with 5 seconds to dry. Medium is by far the darkest tone on the page. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it still offers some very nice shading. And you can see how over is a much lighter word than quick. So it's shading within some of the words, and then some words themselves are much lighter or much darker. 6 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both are showing us no color variation, although we did get some in the writing. And lavender paper, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very nice shading in here. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, just a little lighter, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers shading, a very nice shading. 5 seconds to dry. Medium is by far the darkest tone on the page, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading, 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, and we did get some, and the medium shows none, where we got none. And that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Bookbingers Gray Rattler Snake? This is a very solid and consistently performing gray ink, with a lot of very nice shading throughout all of it. Now with that, I tend to prefer my grays to look more like pencil. So for me, the tone is a little bit off, but this ink is performing incredibly well. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It provides good shading and a good writing experience no matter what pen you put it into. So here we have dealer's choice. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you, if you enjoyed it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.